Ukraine's T-64 tank from the 60s goes head-to-head with Russia's cutting-edge T-72B3 and comes out on top at nearly point-blank range. It makes you wonder just how many of these relics from a bygone era can still bring impressive results in modern combat. Let's kick things off with this one, codenamed Motoliga. Yes, it's essentially a tractor, developed and adopted by the Soviet-Ukrainian Army in 1964. This armored tractor can carry up to 10 troops and even tow-light artillery. Its improvised version has proven to be highly effective despite its age. It performed well during the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2014, and now, during the full-scale war, it's proving invaluable thanks to its versatility and high mobility in reaching the most inaccessible positions along the front line. Motoliga often plays a crucial role in evacuating the wounded. In a way, the Motoliga in the Ukrainian Army plays a similar role to the distinguished M113 in the U.S. Army, serving as an armored personnel carrier for troop transport and medical evacuation. The Ukrainian armored tractor's hull is made of armored steel, with side panels and a rear section between 7 and 14 millimeter thick. The design includes a closed turret with a PKT machine gun for self-defense. This weapon reached its full potential in Ukraine. Developed during the late Cold War era, the S-300 surface-to-air missile system has the capability to defend against a wide range of threats with its advanced radar and launcher technology. The processing power of the onboard computer, as it turns out in practice, is roughly equivalent to that of a basic calculator. Don't forget, this is a design from the early 1980s. Such limited computing power significantly reduces the S-300's capabilities and requires exceptional skill from Ukrainian operators. Moreover, the S-300 has a tendency to break down at the most inconvenient times, further complicating the operator's work. Despite these challenges, Ukrainians became the first to successfully shoot down aerial targets using this system. For example, in Syria in 2018, S-300 operators were unable to intercept the Tomahawks fired from U.S. destroyers. A similar failure occurred in Armenia in 2020 during the war with Azerbaijan over Karabakh. However, Ukrainian operators are now effectively shooting down Russian Kalibr missiles, Kh-101s, and even Kh-555s. According to figures from the Ukrainian General Staff, in just 3 months of the war in 2022, Ukrainians managed to shoot down 200 aircraft using the S-300, and in the summer of that same year, Ukrainian Air Defense Forces shot down 4 Kalibr missiles with 4 S-300 missiles. This is the main battle tank of the Ukrainian army, which was first produced in Ukraine all the way back in the 1960s, though today Ukrainian soldiers mostly rely on those produced a bit later, in the 80s. And these machines are highly effective. Here's an example. On February 12, 2015, in the Donbas region, 3 T-64BM Bulat tanks encountered a group of Russian T-72B3s. This was the first ever tank battle between Russian and Ukrainian forces. The Russians were the first to open intense fire. As a result of a direct hit on one of the T-64s, the knife active protection system was triggered, which not only saved the crew's lives, but also preserved the tank's combat capability. Over 20 minutes, despite the enemy's tricky maneuvers, the Bulats destroyed 3 enemy vehicles without losing any of their own. Today, Ukrainian T-64BV tanks in the 2022 modification are increasingly appearing on the front lines. The first encounters between Ukrainian tankers and Russian forces were a serious test, not only for the soldiers, but also for the T-64 itself, which was considered inferior to the T-72, the main tank of the Russian army. To transform the T-64 into a truly modern fighting machine, several years of design work and 2 waves of modernization were required. The upgrades focused primarily on enhancing the power and reliability of the engine, tank protection, and onboard electronics. A video featuring a tank unit with these modified vehicles was published. The footage shows 6 modernized tanks moving as part of 2 tank platoons. Compared to the original Soviet design, the modernization introduced several improvements and replaced outdated systems with modern ones, significantly enhancing their effectiveness against the enemy. As one of oldest missile systems, let us introduce you to the Buk, codenamed Grizzly, which was developed in the 1970s. This medium-range defense system was designed to counter threats from aircraft and helicopters, much like the S-300. The book is known for its mobility and versatility, featuring launch vehicles, radars, and missiles like the 9M38 and 9M307, which have engagement ranges up to 30 miles. The Buk systems have become something of transformers, being the first to be upgraded under the Franken-SAM program to use American AIM-7 missiles. Despite their usefulness, the Buk systems have a few serious drawbacks, including significantly lower effectiveness compared to the S-300 and a severe shortage of available missiles. However, given the shortage of equipment, even such air defense weapons is crucial for Ukrainians. To make them work, Ukrainians resort to risky and sometimes unsuccessful experiments, as you can see on the screen. In this case, the missile was created by combining parts of two different missiles with sealant. As a result, the engine burned out and the warhead failed to detonate. This only underscores how important it is for Ukrainians to adapt the Buk systems to use American missiles. Before you is the predecessor to the Atacoms, much like the fifth Terminator, old but still necessary, especially considering that around 800 Tochka-U missiles have been used. The Tochka system was crucial in neutralizing Russian tank columns at the beginning of the war, working alongside the latest Javelins as the only available weapons that prevented the Russians from reaching Kiev. As a short-range tactical ballistic system from the 1970s, it offers rapid response capabilities against enemy formations. Known for its precision, the Tochka carries a single solid-fuel missile with a range of 75 to 115 miles. Its ability to deliver precise and powerful strikes allowed Ukrainians to undertake several audacious operations. Two of the most notable examples are the first strike on the Russian airfield in Milarovo on February 25, 2022, and the strike on Russian landing ships in Berdyansk in March 2022, where the ship Orsk was sunk. We won't spend much time on this one, but this beast definitely deserves a spot on this list. The BM-21 Grad, which is mostly used by the Russians to shell Ukrainian cities and villages. Mass-produced during Soviet times, this weapon is also present in Ukraine's arsenal. However, out of 40 rocket salvos, Ukrainian defenders often use only one due to a lack of ammunition. Its 122mm rockets have a range of 12 to 24 miles. The Grad's ability to deliver rapid barrages makes it effective for counter-battery fire and disrupting enemy movements. Additionally, its mobility allows for rapid repositioning, making it a challenging target for adversaries. The Shilka is like a giant lawnmower that literally mows down Russian positions, essentially a massive shotgun on tracks. In Ukraine, these guns are primarily used against ground targets. This lightly armored, self-propelled anti-aircraft system from the Soviet era has a rate of fire of 850 to 1,000 rounds per minute and is equipped with 500 rounds of ammunition. What sets this system apart are its four 23mm cannons, which can shred through any lightly armored target, a sort of Soviet attempt at a minigun, though not quite as successful. When talking about old Soviet anti-aircraft guns, we can't forget the S-60. This vintage yet valiant defender of the skies still packs a punch in today's defense landscape. The S-60, with its robust 57mm caliber, is like the hero in an old-school action movie, always ready to take on low-flying aircraft and light armored vehicles. Its high rate of fire, at a sizzling 120 rounds per minute. This anti-aircraft gun may be old, but the Ukrainian army knows how to handle such weapons effectively. As reported, since the arrival of S-60 into battery, direct helicopter attacks have been dissuaded, open attacks from armored vehicles have stopped, and actions of enemy mortar have decreased. Despite being a bit of a relic, the S-60's mobility allows it to be towed by vehicles, making it a roving sentinel that can pop up where it's needed most. This artillery system was originally designed during Soviet times to fire 203mm nuclear shells at American tanks. However, things took a different turn, and the Russian-Ukrainian War became its first real battlefield test in over 40 years of service. Today, the two S-7 Pions, with its 203mm caliber, remains one of the most powerful artillery pieces in Ukraine's arsenal, despite a well-known issue with ammunition shortages. In fact, the Pion played a crucial role in defending the Ukrainian capital during the first days of the invasion. 12 Soviet-era 2 S-7 Pions were used to defend the approaches to Kyiv. These Ukrainian peons targeted Russian artillery, armored vehicles, air defense systems, electronic warfare stations, and supply trucks. While it's impossible to get an exact count of the destroyed equipment, according to their combat logs, around 2,500 units of Russian equipment were hit in the Kyiv region alone. The ammunition shortage remains a problem, though it's being partially addressed by the U.S. Department of Defense, which has already provided Ukraine with 10,000 rounds of 203mm shells. It's likely this support made it possible to use peons during the Kursk operation, as we can see from recent photos of Ukrainian soldiers with two S-7 peons in the Kursk region. Finally, we present a hero of World War I that, over a century later, is being used by mobile fire teams to counter long-range kamikaze drones. And considering cost-effectiveness, this legendary weapon still delivers impressive results. Ukraine's military innovators have turned to such simple and effective solutions due to a shortage of small arms. They note that the Maxim is a reliable weapon with manageable recoil and plenty of Soviet-era ammunition to keep it operational. But of course it has its drawbacks, such as its bulky size and need for water cooling. Subscribe to our channel if you're impressed by the Maxim gun's reliability after a century in service.